Welcome everybody. Namaste. We are back again. Completing the Nakshatra series that we started many years ago, I think, and we're still continuing with the series. And today we'll be doing this class. Today is a master class on Shravana Nakshatra. There was something that I wanted to share with all of you. Some of the ancient names of Shravana Nakshatra. Okay, some of the names which have been given to Shravana are Ananta. You know, strangely it is called as Ananta or Anantya. So it's very strange that you see the connection with the serpent god like Ananta Shesha. So because it's Vishnu's nakshatra and Vishnu reclines on the Ananta. Now another name which I have come across in some old text with the Shravana nakshatra is the name of Ashwatha. Now Ashwatha means the people tree. And very strangely, you can see right opposite to Shravana, on the other end, you see that you have Pushya Nakshatra, which is associated with the people tree. So, Ashwatha is again another name. So there might be some connection with Shravana Nakshatra and with trees in particular, I would say so. And this, I don't think I have read in any other books, but I'm just saying. So Ashwatha is another name. Govinda, Hari, Hariba, these are different names that have also come. Srinatha, Shruti, Shravana, and in Tamil Nadu and in Malayalam in Kerala, they would also call it Tiruvonam. And it is it's something that struck me when I was started studying about nakshatras. Is there were only two nakshatras which had this prefix called Tiru before they start, and this is one of them. Tiru means chief or important or um, primary or something, with that. So Tiru, the word Tiru Onam and Tiruvadirai, which was Ardra Nakshatra and Shravana Nakshatra, are the only two nakshatras which starts with a prefix in Tamil or in Malayalam in with the Tiru. So it's very interesting to see that these two nakshatras are connected with the Rudra or Shiva and with with Vishnu here. Okay, Dr. Togi, are you there?
Yeah, I'm there. I'm there getting prepared, doing my makeup.
Okay. The Shravana makeup?
Yes, Shravana makeup. Just getting prepared for. Let me share the screen. Did you give the access? Okay, yeah, there is a. Ready?
Yes.
Okay. So Shravana, as we know, is the star of the learning year. Correct? That's what they call. And the sun transits dates for Shravana, as we know, it lies in Capricorn Rashi, spanning from 10 degree to 23 degree 20 minutes. And sun transits this Shravana Nakshatra from around 25th January to 7th. So last week of January and the first week of February. That's where the sun transits Shravana Nakshatra every year. Okay. Okay. Because 14th January is the Makar Sankranti. 10 days from that will be covering the 10 days of Capricorn. So around 25th January is when the sun enters Shravana Nakshatra till first week of February. Talking about Shravana Nakshatra, the Yogatara of Shravana is the altar in the constellation of Aquila. And incidentally, it's strange to see that the Yogata, if you divide the zodiacal belt into equal divisions of 30 degrees and 13 degree 20 minutes, equal spans of each nakshatra, then the Yogatara of Shravana, that is altar, will fall in Capricorn at 7 degree 56 minutes, very near to Capricorn 8 degree. Now, Capricorn 8 degree is what nakshatra in equal system? Anyone?
It's Uttarashada, right?
It's in Uttarashada, correct? So the Yogatara of Shravana is at the end of the Uttarashada Nakshatra. So we have seen this right from Purvashada, Uttarashada, and I think Shravana Nakshatra. All these Yogataras are very falling into the previous nakshatra. I don't know about Purvashada, but definitely Uttarashada falls. Yogatara of Uttarashada is in Purvashada. Yogatara of Shravana is in Uttarashada. So there is a slight difference at the end part of those nakshatras. So that's why the whole purpose of unequal divisions came up, but that's totally different topic. But
Togi,
just notice that.
the Abhijit area, that would be within that as well, right?
Yes, 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 exactly. Exactly. The last part of Uttarashada and the 115th part of Shravana is in Abhijit.
Yes.
So there is some link of Uttarashada, Shravana. Again, link, I'm using a word link, which is a strong theme keyword for Shravana Nakshatra. The other thing is, which I have not shown here, is Shravana is very far from the zodiacal belt. Now, the zodiacal belt, you can see the Capricorn, the Sagittarius here below. That's where somewhere the zodiacal belt lies, just below this. And this is north direction. So Shravana, Yogatara is far away from ecliptic. Okay, it's far away from ecliptic. So that means there is some connection of Shravana Nakshatra with far off lands, with foreign lands. That can be easily seen through this concept of astronomically where the star is placed. Okay. So Yogatara is in Uttarashada Nakshatra portion of the zodiac in the equal division. And the other point to notice, it is far away from the zodiacal belt. Now, zodiacal belt, as we know, is where there's a band across the ecliptic. Ecliptic is nothing but the path of the sun. So in the sky, in the whole sky, the sun in a whole year is going through some path. And there is a band around this ecliptic, which is called a zodiacal belt, where all the planets and other moons will always be going through this ecliptic belt, zodiacal belt. But Shravana, this Yogatara of Shravana is far away from the ecliptic belt. It's not in the path of ecliptic. Exactly, because all this, the zodiacal belt is somewhere here, which is not shown, but just below this line, you may have the zodiacal belt. So it's Sagittarius, this is Capricorn. So the Yogataras of all, as you correctly mentioned, the Yogataras of all the Makar Rashis are far away from the zodiacal belt. Now, Shravana is also moon rule nakshatra, because in the Vimshuttari Dasha, Shravana is the planetary lord comes the moon, and there are 3 moon nakshatras, like there are 9 planets, and there are 27 nakshatras, so each planet gets 3 nakshatras. And the moon rule nakshatras are Rohini, Hasta, and Shravana. And of course, they are all 9 to each other, because and they're Paramitra nakshatra when you go in nakshatra techniques. And remember, whenever you put Rohini as the Lagna, Hasta and Shravana will occupy the 5th and the 9th house respectively. Whenever you put Hasta as the Lagna, Rohini will occupy the 9th house, Shravana will occupy the 5th house. Similarly, when you have Shravana in the Lagna, then you have Rohini in the 5th and Hasta in the 9th house. So they are all 159 axis to each other, as they are all moon rule nakshatras, no, nothing specific. But then, if you see the Lord of Rohini is nothing but who? Brahma. Lord of Shravana is Vishnu. The deity of this Shravana nakshatra is Vishnu. And Hasta is Savitur, which is again a sun god compared to Shiva. So you can see all the moon rule nakshatras has got something to do with the Trinity. So the concept of 3 is again coming in the picture, which is again an important concept. Okay, and I will talk more about it, the why 3 and all those, astronomically too. So far, so good. Okay, and that's what I was talking about. The 3, what is the significance of astronomically? Right now, this is the best period of the year to see the Shravana Nakshatra. Nowadays, if you have a clear sky, night sky, just go outside, maybe in a midnight or so, around midnight or so, and high above the sky, you will see 3 main important stars forming a triangle shape. And that is called a summer triangle, made up of 3 stars, but one is Deneb, one is Vega, and one is Altair. Altair is nothing but the Yogatara of Shravana Nakshatra. So these 3 stars will form a summer triangle. Now, why it is called summer triangle? Of course, 3 stars that you can clearly see in the sky. And why it is called summer triangle? Because in the northern hemisphere, this triangle could be seen throughout the summer. It is visible throughout the summer. So there are two triangles. One is summer triangle, one is winter triangle. Okay, so summer triangle. So altar Shravana is associated with one of the star in summer triangle, and it is made up of 3 stars. Similarly, the symbol of Shravana Nakshatra is 3 footsteps. Here you can see 3 footsteps. Okay, so again the concept of 3 is coming in the picture. And so there are 3 stars for altar, summer triangle, number 3 is important. And this altar is in the constellation of Aquila. Maybe here we can see it is in the constellation of Aquila. And Aquila is called as the eagle, basically, eagle of the sky. Now, which deity in Hindu mythology has got his Vahana as eagle?
Vishnu.
Vishnu, correct? Again, there's some association with Vishnu. So just by observing, you will have so many themes. Okay. Now connecting, now understand the Shakti of Shravana Nakshatra. Shakti is Samhana, Shakti, power to connect with others. And result of Shakti basically is a connection of all things. So there is some connection, to make connection. So what are the themes that we have studied so far? It is far away from the ecliptic belt, something related to far off lands. Then the concept of 3, the concept of Vishnu, and connection to of all things. Something to connect with others, something to connect with other things. And I will talk a little bit, as I know I'm an astronomer, so I always like to talk about something about the stars. And if you see this Altair image from the Chara interferometer, which is some radio technique, the Altair moves with a very high speed of 286 kilometers per second. It rotates just in 9 hours. So the rotation speed is very high. And so it is flattened at the poles. Now this concept of flattened at the poles, and it becomes like a dwarf, flattened at the poles. So there is some, what you can say, dimensions change, flattened at the poles, dwarf. And the deity of Shravana Nakshatra is Vishnu, and it's connected with the Vamana avatar of Vishnu. Who was Vaman? A dwarf. Height is reduced, correct? Like, I will talk about that story, but there is something about the length. The length scale comes into the picture, and far away lands. And with some, I will give, and imagine when I'm talking this, think about some personalities. Maybe I have some 3-4 Indian personalities who have connected with all this lands and all. So we will talk about it as we go. And here there is a planetary nebula in the Shravana Nakshatra. Okay. And expanding glowing shell of ion. What is a planetary nebula? It's an expanding glowing shell of ionized gas. Again, expanding glowing shell of gas. Okay. So it's like, what is expansion? Again, the concept of expansion comes as the Vishnu form. So again, there's expansion, there's dimensions, like the elongation of some dimensions. You can see the such themes in the Shravana Nakshatra. Now, I should write here Shravana Nakshatra, not Uttarashada. So the star of learning here, foundation above is seeking, foundation below is paths. Shakti, Samana Shakti is power to connect with others. Result of Shakti, basis, desire, and connection to all things. So probably you can always see some connection to all those themes. Okay. Yeah.
So, just to add to whatever Dr. Togi has been saying about Shravana Nakshatra. Now, this nakshatra, as per many, is also the birth star of not only Vishnu but also Srinivasa. He's also called as Perumal, or Srinivasa is Venkateshwara Swami or Venkateshwara, who is the Lord of the who resides on the 7 hills in Tirupati. Okay, and very strangely, what you see is with this. All the nakshatras in Vimshotri Dasha, which is associated with the moon, which is Rohini, Hasta, and also with Shravana Nakshatra. There are special prayers which are done to Vishnu on the third day or the third Tithi, which is called as Tritiya, usually from the new moon. Okay, and one of the most popular festivals we celebrate is called as Akshaya Tritiya. Okay, that is when typically sun is in Aries and moon is in Taurus. So the third day after the new moon, we call it as Tritiya Titiya. Tritiya Titi especially is being given significance to Vishnu on those days, or forms of Vishnu on those days. So on Tritiya Titiya, on Shukla Paksha, which means the waxing phase of the moon, if you offer special prayers, your desires are fulfilled. That is what many of the Vaishnavas would recommend, praying to Vishnu, because again, the connection of three is coming. Tritiya is the third lunar day or the Tithi. Okay. So, Dr. Togi, you can, of course, if there is something anybody wants to add, please add. Otherwise, I think Dr. Togi can continue.
You are saying the deity ruled on Tritiya day is Vishnu, the Lord of Tritiya, Tithi?
Oh, whenever the third day, if it is false, Tritiya happens when it is moving from the moon nakshatra. That's what they say is very important day. The Tritiya Tithi is associated with Vishnu for sure.
Oh, okay.
So Akshay Tritiya, you see the story of Lord Shri Krishna coming in. The story of Krishna with the Draupadi. That's a very important theme. Where she was given the Akshay Patra to Draupadi by Krishna. Akshay Patra means it is a vessel which can never be exhausted. So there will be food being prepared all the time.
I also want some Akshay Patra for laddus, probably. If you can give me, that will be the best gift, probably.
And best will be Akshay Patra with alcohol, That will be the best ever gift.
The alcohol is okay. Okay, anyway. Okay,
Yeah.
so please feel free to jump in and have and also, okay, the Purusharth for Shravana is Artha, Gana is Deva. Just giving the information about Nakshatra, Trimurti is Vishnu. Animal is female monkey. Strange. Bird is Sarus crane, tree is swallow worth milkweed, and symbol is three footprints or maybe ear, the hearing. So again, the concept of hearing is also there in Shravana. Shravan. I think in Hindi, what do you mean by Shravan? Shravan is Manan, Shravan, Pathan, they say, correct? So Shravan is, I don't know, Shravan is like hearing. Maybe that, I may be wrong, but I guess that is what it is. The planetary, year is my always, which I do is, if you say Shravana Nakshatra, there's Rashi Lord, Nakshatra Lord, and Navamsha Lord. The Rashi, of course, is in Capricorn. So the Rashi Lord is always Saturn. The Nakshatra Lord is Moon for this. And the Navamsha Lord, and if you see the Shravana Nakshatra, the first Navamsha of Shravana is Aries. Second Navamsha falls in Taurus. Third falls in Gemini. And the fourth falls in Cancer. So the respective Navamsha Lord also becomes Mars, Venus, Mercury, and Moon. So lot of energy is different planets here, but there's a common factor of Saturn and Moon here. Now, what is Saturn and Moon? Moon is, of course, care, love, motherly, nourishing. These are the concepts of Moon. And the Saturn is discipline, long-term goal-oriented, patience, etc. And of course, they are very knowledgeable, good teachers I have seen in Shravana Nakshatra too. Very good teachers. Actually, somehow, I worked with one or two people who were not my direct advisors when I was doing my PhD, but indirectly I worked with them, collaborated with them. Somehow I come across with Shravana people. And very good teachers, very disciplined and long-term goal-oriented patients. So all those qualities. So somehow Shravana Nakshatra people make good teachers, I guess. As per my experience, I don't know. If you see the Shravana Nakshatra, there's a special Pada, which is the second Pada of Pushkara Bhaga, comes under Pushkara Bhaga, the 14-degree Capricorn. 14-degree Capricorn, because it's an earth-based sign. Capricorn is an earth-based sign, and at 14 degree, which falls in the second Pada of Shravana Nakshatra, is at Pushkara Bhaga. And the Pushkar Navamsha is also second pada. So second pada of Shravana Nakshatra becomes something very significant. It's the Pushkara Bhaga as well as the Pushkara Navamsha. Now festivals is another, which is the Onam, Tiruvonam, which is a festival in Kerala, celebrated in Kerala, where it's this month, when the sun, not this month, means starts from August 17, when the sun has to be in Leo and the moon has to be in Shravana Nakshatra. That day, the festival of Onam is celebrated. Now, if someone in the group can say about the legend behind that, that will be great. Santhip, you are from Kerala. You should
Yeah.
say. You should
Yeah,
say
we are about to enter into Onam season soon. When sun enters into Leo and moon, when sun enters into Leo, moon crosses sun. The first tithi, from that point onwards, it begins you begin to put flowers. Actually, from Attam day, the Hasta Nakshatra day, you begin to put flowers. You begin to greet the Vamana avatar by flowers. So it's very interesting thing. So like so because there is it's astrologically it's very interesting thing about the rituals behind it. But first I'll explain what is normally done, right? So normally you make a flower carpet. You begin from a Hasta Nakshatra day, and you can decorate it, express creativity, and so forth. Now, traditionally, you would actually have an appan and a Vamana appan. So it's like a Vamana equivalent of appan. A father is actually installed in the center of the floral carpet, which you would actually supposed to give an umbrella to that Vamana also. So you're traditionally supposed to do that. So traditionally you would do that, and then for 10 days you would do it, and then the 10th day, which is Onam day, you also have a small Onam day, which is the Uttarashada Nakshatra, and then the actual Tiruvonam day, which is the Shravana Nakshatra day, and so forth. So traditionally they say, at least in Kerala, there is a widespread belief that it is to greet the Mahabali, the return of the king Mahabali from the Patal Lok to Kerala. But actually, it is actually the greeting of Vamana avatar. So you're actually greeting the return of Vamana avatar who is coming back, and so forth. So there is a misconception there, and there's a lot of widespread marketing around that time during Onam, purchase discount offers and all that, big time shopping and so forth. All that kind of thing is also very common. So I mean, they're usually marketed using the demon king Mahabali also. But interestingly, in Kerala, the legend goes that Mahabali was actually was also given a boon by Vishnu. So Aditya, maybe you can explain the story. What happened with
who is good in saying the story here?
There's very significant key players of the grahas involved in this, and there's a very strong significance of Guru or Jupiter, very strong significance with Shukracharya. This is the story exactly where Shukra loses his eye.
Yes.
Very significant. And in this story, there is the great apparent loss of the material and the gain of a spiritual status. His obedience in some way is so great, even though he doesn't listen to his own guru.
When we talk about this mythological story with Mahabali, King Mahabali is supposed to be the king of Kerala. In fact, that's where his region was. And you can see that he was also Asur Raj. He was an emperor of the Asuras or the Daityas. And you can see that, Kerala typically falls in the southwest direction of India, where people who have learned a little bit of Vastu know that southwest region is ruled by Rahu. And Rahu is also called the Asura, the Asur Raj. So, that's the region where he used to rule. That was his kingdom, And the story goes with a young boy, a dwarf form of Vishnu's avatar. He is the fifth incarnation of Vishnu. And, it's very interesting to see whenever we look at the avatars of Vishnu, also you see, when you say the fifth avatar or number 5, right? Number 5 is, you see, the fifth day of the week is Jupiter's day, which is, Thursday. If you start with Sunday being the first day of the week. And surprisingly, you see, all the days of the week are somehow connected to each of the avatars. So if you go to the 6th avatar, which is Parashuram, just as an example, he is ruled by Venus. I mean, Venus is the main planet which rules that avatar. So why is the sixth day of the week is Friday, which is associated with Venus. So fifth day, very strongly you can see the thing with Jupiter coming into play here, which is the Vamana avatar. So Vamana avatar was a dwarf avatar which just walked into this great king Mahabali of Kerala. Okay, and he asks, he impresses Mahabali with his wisdom and his knowledge, and Mahabali is so impressed that he wants to give him whatever he asks for. And that's when, whenever he makes this statement, his guru, Shukracharya, which is Venus, is beside him, and he warns Mahabali, saying that, look, this guy, he looks like an incarnation of Vishnu. He's a dwarf, but don't go just by the looks. He looks like a young boy who's very well learned, and he's asking for something from you, but then be very careful of what you want to give him. But Mahabali is in a very candid manner. He says, look, he's a boy ultimately. Let him ask what he wants to. So all that Vamana Avatar will ask for is 3 steps or 3 paces. He says, I just want, whatever my 3 small baby steps can take that's all I need from you. And Mahabali is surprised. He says, I've asked you, I'm the greatest emperor of all the 3 lokas. You can ask for anything. Why are you asking only for 3 paces? That's when I think Shukracharya becomes even more alert, and he says, I'm sure this is, a trick. So, Maharaj, he says to Mahabali, be very careful about what you're going to give him. And the story goes, he says, I can give you gold, I can give you villages, whatever you want to, you ask for. He just sticks with the same thing. He says, if you want to give me something, just give me 3 steps. And the ritual of how you give away something, even today, if you want to, there is a way of trying to, it's called tirtha, which means the water has to flow from your hand. Once the water flows from the hand, you can't take back whatever you have promised. So he takes a pot with a spout in it, and he pours the water, but there's no water coming out. Because what Shukracharya, his guru, has done, he has transformed him to a small. He's gone and he has stood at the entrance of the spout so that no water will flow. And Vamana, he just picks up a blade of grass, like a kusha grass, and he just goes and pokes the spout to clear, so that the water can flow. And in this bargain, it's said that Shukra has hurt one of his eyes, and he's said to be, his eye has been hurt in this whole thing. So one of the themes that you see with Shukra is also with one eye person who can't see very well with one of his eyes. Okay, after this incident, and then the water flows, and then he asks for these 3 steps, and he says it's given. And that's when the small dwarf avatar, he just grows in size, enormous size. And then he, with one step, he takes over the heavens and the earth. 2 steps, he takes the heavens and the earth, and then he says, where can I put the 3rd step? Great Lord, you can put it on my head. So he bows down in front of him. And I think this is one of the only avatars
Hi,
of.
everyone. Did Dr. Pai got stuck up in between? Did Dr. Pai got stuck up in between?
Yeah, he got stuck up in between.
Yeah,
but
it's
it
unstable.
all came back also. Quickly. Yeah, that's
Okay.
I was able to recover it. Yeah.
So one of the very few avatars of Vishnu in his incarnation where he didn't slay the demon, or he didn't slay the asura. All other avatars you see, there is slaying, but this is the only avatar of Vishnu where he pushes him to the Patal Lok. And he also says, you are such a generous and charitable king that once a year, one day in a year, you come back to your land, to your people, and they will celebrate, your glories. And that is why we celebrate Onam in Kerala. So he comes back to his, and what another also boon which is given by Vamana Avatar to him, to Mahabali, he says, you are going to be the Brahma after this Brahma in the next Manvantar, or whenever the next cycle of Brahma starts. He says, you are going to be the next Indra or Brahma, of the next cycle. So that's
Indra, I heard that he was going to be the next Indra.
Indra, sorry. It was not Brahma, sorry. He is coined to be the next Indra. Yeah. So, Santhip, you wanted to add something with the festivities, what happens, and
Yeah, definitely. So what usually happens is that there is a flower competition. That's what usually happens among institutions. I'm just joking, but like usually you make floral carpets, and that's how you greet and so forth. And usually, if you're in the school setting, then all the classes compete with your floral carpets, and that's a thing here, in Kerala. And definitely there is like what Dr. Pai said, we do celebrate the return of the King Mahabali in a grandiose manner and so forth. In fact, Kerala, like Dr. Pai said, is also having a very deep history of being the Asura land in many cultural kind of things. Like you have the sound of the drums, for instance, the chanda, right? So it's actually called as an Asuravadyam, for instance. So it actually has that sound of the Asura. It's a very loud kind of sound, like when you're having that, the punch, like what Aditya, what's it called? The five thing?
Panchavadyam.
Panchavadyam, yeah. The Panchavadyam, you have the horn thing, you have the cymbals, and then you have you have the thing going on in the temples and so forth. So the whole thing is having an Asura kind of background. So the Kerala as a land has a Asura kind of traditional kind of thing going on, at least at the musical level for sure. So it's very interesting to see that. So Kerala definitely has a Asura kind of land as a history, because Mahabali is also celebrated as a king, as a generous king who wants to come back to see over his people and so forth. But then correspondingly, there is also an alternate version in which you are actually celebrating the return of Vamana avatar. So that's the other kind of thing in which all the center of the floral carpet you actually have the Vamana Muttappan. He's called as the Appan. You actually supposed to give an umbrella for the central thing. You put some mud in front, middle, and you actually put an umbrella also in between. And that's a big thing, So you actually in the morning itself you start to hunt for flowers, and then you get flowers and you make a floral carpet and stuff for that. It's very interesting because in the story part, Shukracharya is the one who's actually not listened to. And if you make Shravana Nakshatra as the ascendant, Venus is getting debilitated in the 9th house of Virgo. So in many ways, during this time period, they are actually kind of honoring Shukracharya indirectly. That is also what is happening. You're using flowers, you're making a flower carpet and so forth. And what is also interesting is that the flower carpet, the center of that flower carpet is also Vishnu, which is Vamana Avatar. That is also very, very fascinating, And Vamana Avatar is also very fascinating because, and there is a lot of things, but at least from the story point, I can say that in Kerala, usually during that time is the time period when you actually buy new clothes, you celebrate it, you have good feasts, you have big sadhya and all that, you have a lot of food, that kind of thing is what is expected. And especially this is also a harvest festival. Now, traditionally, you would actually make food, you'd have a grand feast and all that, the typical Onam sadhya is like a big thing amongst Keralites and so forth, and they basically chill out together and have a big feast, a giant feast, that's also a common thing. And all these are also very important, very, very careful kind of points also, especially with Vamana Avatar having these 3 steps of land and so forth. And perhaps when you go later, I can elaborate on that. But I wanted to highlight this flower as being a ritualistic kind of, literally you have to put flowers, but sprinkle water on top of the flowers at the end of it. That's also the other interesting thing. You don't make the flowers traditionally. You actually have to sprinkle water at the end also to complete it at least 3 times. So which is like the Shukracharya's part of that water sprinkling thing which Dr. Pai mentioned. So now it clicked for me when you share that. So it's very interesting in that regard also. And then so supposedly when you do that flower thing also, there's also usually you chant mantras and stuff also. People do prayers and things like that also during that time. And that time is considered to be very auspicious. Usually any kind of deals that happen during Onam Day, like land deals, for instance, even any things you purchase and so forth. That day is considered to be very auspicious amongst the natives here. Very, very auspicious. They're supposed to, especially in the month of Chingam, or when Sun is in Leo. That Sun and Leo month is very, very auspicious in general for many things here also. So in general, the people say that we are moving to a new home. Let's move into a new home when the sun is in Leo, when it's Chingamasam, that's what they say. So very interesting kind of
New home and marriages also. Lot of marriages.
Yeah, a lot of marriages. Definitely.
Chingamasam.
Yeah, a lot of marriage. Even in spite of Sun being in Dakshina during that time, Sun in Leo time is like prime time for marriages here. So that's a very interesting kind of a thing that is also seen here for sure. And definitely a lot of food also. A lot of food I can say for sure. Me being a foodie and all that. But then what I can say is that what is interesting is also that at least from a festival point of view, there are usually 3 Onams also celebrated. Actually, that's an interesting thing. You have the Cherry Onam, which is like small Onam, which is the day before Tirunam, and you have the main Tiruonam, which is also a big feast, which is the main day, and then you have the third day Onam also, which is like which is also a smaller kind of celebration and so forth. So that's also very interesting kind of a thing and so forth, and then usually during this time period you always get flowers everywhere. People are selling flowers, all that, and there's a thing with flowers also that goes on during that time. So
Flowers are again related to Venus.
Venus, exactly that. Yeah. So you can see how Venus is getting debilitated, but you are actually enhancing that debilitation of Venus, through the flower kind of ritual.
Makes a
Actually,
lot of sense, Sandeep ji, just quickly for the listeners, because Sun and Leo, what do you have? You have Magha, the Pitris. You have Purva Falguni, the most auspicious, one of the most auspicious. Uttar Falguni is really the most auspicious for marriage, but you have, it's all about procreation within Leo, all of it. And then
Yeah.
from Shravana, what's interesting is it falls in the 8th house, which is marriage. A lot of people don't realize that, but that's the private life after marriage. That's the in-laws. That's all the secret things that happen after the contract is sealed. So it makes perfect sense. That's where the 8th house becomes auspicious, and that's even where the sun, because the sun is the seed, right? The seed, the first spark of life. So that's even the guarantee of children or progeny. And then Shukracharya has so much to do with that, making sure that lineages get carried. And really, Ravana was a great Vidyadhara, right? He was knowledge of all sciences, and his way of life was so inspiring to his people that they followed suit because he was just so accomplished. And that's really what we get with Bali, is this very accomplished, very good king. Correct me, guys, if I'm wrong, but he's like Shravana. You want to hear good things said about you. That's one of the, and he was, is that correct, Dr. Paiti? You're shaking your head. He was really well
Yeah,
thought of.
absolutely. Yeah. I think, that's one of the reasons why he was very much interested in giving whatever his word was, because he always wanted to listen good things about him being said about him. And in one of the texts that I have seen, he in fact even instructs Ravana to to temper down and to return Sita back to Lord to Ram, because it said that that is when he also because when he keeps coming back, because he's never dead, he's kind of immortal, right? He keeps coming back. So he has at certain times he has also tried to put some sense into Ravana, being the Rakshas, the king of the Rakshasas, Ravana. So he has tried to intervene, and he has also told him to let go of all your you know shadripus, which means kam, krodh, lob, moh, mada, matsarya, envy, greed, lust, pride, ego. He said the only thing that you definitely should keep is your knowledge, and because you are a great, that's what he mentioned to Ravana, Mahabali, the great king Mahabali. So I think one thing is, after him being humbled, I think he has really become more wiser, and he was giving good counsel to people as well.
And as you mentioned, this is the only nakshatra where there is, the rakshasa is not being really, or the only avatar where it's not being slayed.
Slayed, yeah.
And also, he's not as exploitive as the other rakshasas. In any story, he has this good reputation.
That's
Right?
Yeah.
So he's really, and he's able to, there's even versions of the story where when Shukracharya tells him, please don't do this. This is definitely Vishnu. This is not good for your race. This is not good for your land. Vishnu is coming to, trick you. He says, well, how can I refuse if the Lord himself has come before me? How can I say no? So he even chooses, he does something that no one in the Mahabharata can do. No one in the Mahabharata can back down from their vow. Every single person, no matter how noble, keep these rigid vows to the point where it just wrecks the families, right? I mean, you just see this chaos come into motion from these very noble, powerful people on both sides. They're
Yeah.
meritorious people on both sides destroying each other. And these strong vows, no one will budge. And then you get to this story, and you have someone who's performing this great yajna, who's about to become the lord of the three worlds.
Yeah.
You know, he's about it for the betterment of his ancestors and for his future progeny. You know, he's establishing this kind of permanence amongst the god, or above the gods. And he actually is in many ways worthy of it. He's one of the first ones. He's a just king. So this is a very interesting nakshatra because of this, because the so-called foe or enemy, as you would have it, and even the manifestation of Lord Vishnu, they're both there's an elevation of understanding here, that's very specific, and I'm wondering how you guys feel that plays into the nakshatra, because it is a very special nakshatra. I've seen people with very pleasant. There's an energy about this nakshatra. There's like a feeling about it. Like sometimes I've met some of the females, they'll have just like a pleasant smile and a pleasant demeanor. There's something very pleasant. Not always. Like I said, there is that side we have to remember it is in a Shani Rashi. So there's going to be sometimes, you know, you had to really determine the whole chart, guys. I'm never the type that likes to pick out one part of the vehicle and say that the whole car runs off of this one part of the engine. That kind of astrology, guys, will always fail. You know that. I mean, for those of you listening, you can never just say, what does Mars do in Shravana? The better question is, what does Mars do in Shravana for me, or for this person, or for that? Because so many things are going to influence that Mars, and so many things are going to influence Shravana and the sign of Makara, and it's going to be just the breath of that very nakshatra is going to be very different per person. All of our breathing patterns are even different. You know, it's really amazing. We're also incredibly unique in some way. So with Shravana, I'm not trying to make across the board that this is the only way it's going to be, but you will see when it does manifest, when the lotus of this nakshatra blooms fully in a person, you will notice something abnormally pleasant. But they have incredible access to information. And what's interesting, and tell me if you guys have noticed this, I have had Shravana people say to me, some of them are excellent listeners, and other ones say that they don't listen. I find it fascinating. I find it fascinating that the theme of listening does tend to come in one way or another. It will tend to come in. It's not always that the person's a great listener. Sometimes they're a great lecturer, or you know, they're very well learned, like Aditya ji was saying, they'll be this fabulous teacher, but they might not be the best listener, even though they'll be a good counselor. Then you'll hear other Shravanas say that yes, that they do have that specific talent. And I mean, this is really, though, when we really look at this is the ability to, okay, let me say this, just the last thing. So you have Pushya Nakshatra, right? That's mostly across. So you have Brahaspati, the priest, right? And Vamana, right? You have Brahaspati sitting right across here. The prayer comes from Pushya, right? The prayer. And directly across, you have the one who's receiving the prayer, Lord Vishnu, Hari, the compassionate, the one that cares to listen, you know, the one that cares if the world is suffering. I mean, in this story is very interesting because you have Aditi across, Punarvasu, the mother goddess who gives birth to Vamana. Yes. That is his actual mother in the story. Then you have Jupiter next to it, right? So you actually have this kind of interesting marriage happening, and the one who says the prayer with the genuine with the proper longing, the truth. When you say a prayer from a real space, as opposed to just going, oh, I want this car, please give it to me. I'm going to burn this incense, and this is the ridiculous stuff that then people get mad at God. But it's like, what does God have to do with that? Or not that God doesn't have to do with that, but what in the world makes us feel so entitled that intelligence would care about a car? This, like, if you don't really need it. But pushya is nourishment. It's what you really need. And it's in the heart, it's in the chest, it's cancer. It's what you really need. So you cry out to Lord Vishnu. You always hear that Pahima, save us, please, rescue us. And Vishnu in Shravana listens and hears and rescues. So there is this kind of interesting thing here where you have the prayer and the listener, but you also have this importance of history here too. I don't know how many history teachers you guys have seen with Makara in general, but are people fascinated in history? Dhanishta, more war history, you'll see a lot. But Shravana, you'll see with history in general, or ancient things. Makara has to do with those ancient things. So Shravana, there's a real importance about learning from the past, listening to the Mahabharata. It's a moon nakshatra, right? Lord Krishna was the moon avatar. So it was a story of two families that should have really done great things to this world and helped all the beings, right? But instead, they choose this path of stubbornness and extreme vows. I mean, the kind of vows you get in the Mahabharata, you don't hear anywhere else. And it just causes the complete thing. So from Shravana, you get this great need to listen to the past. What happened? Where did we go wrong? How do I teach the future generations to avoid war? Or here's what's interesting, the Sampat Nakshatra is Dhanishta. What if you have to go to war? This is where Mars finds deep exaltation. What if you have to go to war? Don't you need to be educated by history? Don't you need to have the proper understanding of what that is? Don't you need to try not to have a war? And this is interesting. Mahabali does this. He doesn't go to war. He bows to Vishnu. He knows the legacy. He knows, this is not at the, this is much before the time of Mahabharata, right? So, but you still have that essence of his intelligence of, okay, we don't need to make a big drama out of this. We don't need to cause unnecessary suffering. So Shravana people, and what I've seen with them is they do have a compassionate doctor within them in a way almost. Like that Sampat Nakshatra is very important for every nakshatra. I could show this to you guys with exaltation. All you got to do is think about it. But one example is Mars. So Mars is known as what? Roga Karaka. He's the surgeon. He's the doctor, right? He's known as the body. What's the Sampat Nakshatra of Dhanishta where he exalts? Do you guys know what Sampat Nakshatra is?
Satabisha, right?
And what is Shadavashaka?
It's Varuna, right?
The doctor.
The doctor.
Doctor, healer, yeah. Healers, 100 healers.
Every exaltation point has this. Every single exaltation point has this very important role with the Sampat Nakshatra, because that is really where the merit is. That's where the wealth of that nakshatra comes in. So in Dhanishta, you get all the body parts flying in the war, and all these things. And then you get in Shadavashaka, you get the medicines to treat it. But Dhanishta can be a doctor because of that, reading the pulse. It's very aware of the body in some ways. Very, very sensitive to physical health, very commonly. So if we take that and apply that to Shravana, then Dhanishta becomes the Sampat Nakshatra. Now, no graha traditionally exalts here, but just taking Shravana itself and applying that same intelligence, that the wealth of Shravana, the merit of Shravana, that pot of punya, of good karmas, you could say, is going to come through hearing something and applying the action. Because in Dhanishta is where we apply action. Now, what that action is going to be depends on the consciousness of the individual. So, Shravana, it's very important what the person is putting into their mind, how they're being informed, what they're studying, what they're focused on, and the way that they're listening to life, the way that they're praying, the way that they're hearing the requests of others, the way that history and the past has affected them. I've known some Shravana people who also have what you would almost call past life memories of their death, which is interesting with the connection with Bali. I've seen where most people will say Scorpio is a sign of phobias. I have seen Makara sometimes, and specifically Shravana, have these weird sensitivities, like wake up in the middle of the night, having night terrors about burning in a fire or drowning in a river, or so there is some extra sensory perception that's going on in Shravana that the person it's a very spiritual spot, I would say, out of all of the nakshatras. It's this spot of almost where you get to breathe in and hear what's happening before you make your next step. And so there's a lot of information coming from the past that is informing a Shravana person in a very unique way, and they do need to listen to whatever that is, even if it's, once again, abstract. I think Dr. Paiji, you had said before that this nakshatra, which was a good observation, can cause asymmetry.
That's true. Asymmetry, and also with your legs,
And
that
that's something abstract about the body, right? Does that, it can even apply to the mind?
Yeah.
Something, and I've seen like people with Shravana sometimes will like the Vishnu Sahasranamam or things like that. They'll like to hear that kind of repetition, those kinds of things. There's almost something like with the Akashic element, with this, like the hearing of mantras, the hearing of music. It's just got this interesting abstract element that you're introducing into a very practical Rashi of Makara. It's a fascinating kind of like little drop in the ocean, because it's really not the same. Like Uttarashada can be doubtful, very analytical, very much like a Capricorn. If you meet some of them, they're very much like the traditional Makara in some way. And Dhanishta can be too. Both of those signs can be very, practical, these kinds of things. When you have Shravana, it's almost like a beating heart in a way. Even though the real rhythm, the beating heart, comes in through Dhanishta.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's almost like they have this they're like these special people sitting in this kind of unique spot. And what I mentioned before is there can be, in the average person, we're not talking about people living in ashrams and stuff, we're talking about people living in the world too, right? So in the average person, you will see many times a degree of depression with this nakshatra. So even if you do have like Jupiter there, which is supposed to be an optimistic graha, you will see a kind of some kind of moody. There can be a little bit of a moodiness to this nakshatra, even if the person's very silent about it. There's something, think about the Shravana people in your life. It's just something very unique, because it's almost like a mix of qualities that usually wouldn't go together. So anyway, okay, guys, I just wanted to kind of share that experience.
This nakshatra is also called as Karna. Karna is a reference to the year, right? And let's not forget, the same name goes in Mahabharata. We have the great Karna, who was also very generous, just like Mahabali, very charitable. Okay, so that's one connection that maybe doesn't have any correlation with Karna, but I'm just saying, the word Karna is another name for this nakshatra. Now, one more thing that you have brought up, and I'm talking about the year. When you talk about the year, which is very surprising, the smallest bone in the human body is in the ear. And there are only 3 bones which make up the inner part of the ear, the middle part of the ear where you can really hear. We call it the eardrum, isn't it? Now we also say Dhanishta is the drum, and the ear is the external organ, which is Shravana or Shrona, and the inner part is like the Dhanishta. Now these three bones, which are the smallest bones, we call them the hammer, the anvil, and I think it is called the stapes. Okay, so these are the three bones which are the smallest bones. Why three bones? Why not four? Why not two? Why not one? So again, we see this connection with the three steps that we're talking, and maybe there is a connection that with the ear and the middle ear and these three bones. And we say Vamana avatar is a dwarf avatar. So this is the smallest bone that you can find in the ear, in the human body. And something again popped up in my mind is, if you really see, you can see here in the slide, it says the sun and the moon are in 6-8 relationship, because the sun is in Leo when the moon is in Shravana Nakshatra in the 8th house. This relationship is called as Shadashtak in Sanskrit. Shad means 6, Ashtak means 8. So the 6-8 relationship that you see is very surprising. That you see Rudra's nakshatra, which is Ardra, falls in Gemini, and just 8 houses from there, Shravana, again, Vishnu's nakshatra, Shravana nakshatra is falling. Again, if you see Capricorn and Gemini are in 6-8 relationship. And to add to that, if you see, Ardra falls in Gemini, which is ruled by Mercury. And we all know that is, Mercury is associated with Vishnu.
Yeah.
Okay. And then you see, Vishnu's nakshatra falls in Capricorn, which is ruled by Saturn. And many of us know that Saturn is also controlled under Rudra. That is his main planet. He controls. So isn't it surprising that, in every avatar of Vishnu, Shiva says, I am part of the Vishnu avatar, and Vishnu says, I'm part of every Shiva. And they are in 6-8 relationship, and you see what is happening? The Vaishnavites and the Shaivites are always at loggerheads of saying who is greater than each other. It's a 6-8 relationship, Shadashtak. So if you see the Vaishnavites, which is,
Yes.
Shravana,
Pamela.
yeah.
They're all like,
They will never be, they will never be, even though when the gods themselves are saying, I am part of this avatar, and the other deity is saying, I pray to Shiva, even Rama avatar, you see, he prays to Shiva and Shivalinga, and he makes, Rameshwar, which is Ramalinga at Rameshwar, and he worships Shiva. And then Shiva also tells everybody that I'm part of, this Vishnu avatar. He comes as a Hanuman. You can see Hanuman is behind you. And what is the animal associated with Shravana Nakshatra? It's a monkey. It's a female monkey. Why? Why are you seeing this monkey connection, Akila connection? Akila means the eagle, Garuda, the vehicle. So there is some cosmic, symphony which is playing out.
this nakshatra is very special. It's also 22.
Yeah.
It's also 22, which is very stable. It's at that 4.
Whenever whenever sun passes through the Yogatara, it is 22nd of January. Am I right, Aditya?
Yeah. 22nd January will be the, yeah.
So that is the time around when the coronation of the United States of America happens. To add, I don't know if one of you are going to cover the story of Gajendra moksha. Is Santhip or Aditya or anybody in your slides are going to cover anything with Gajendra?
I'm not having Gajendra moksha, no.
Okay, just listen to the story of Gajendra moksha. You will see this is Shravana Nakshatra. Gajendra moksha is a story of a crocodile, gripping Gajendra, which is an elephant, and it just, cries for help. And this is the only story where you see in the story that Vishnu comes riding on his eagle. Most of the stories don't see this. So this is again a connection. You see eagle, again, we said is Shravana Nakshatra, crying out. So he listened to, the plea of his great devotee Gajendra. And Makara means, we said again, crocodile. Makara Rashi means crocodile. So there is a very strong connection with this story. And we know that, after the story, Gajendra was given moksha. That's why Gajendra moksha, which means he got liberation after, coming out of the clutches, and, he comes riding on an eagle. That's one of the stories you see. You can see Vishnu coming on the eagle. Many, you don't find many stories where he comes riding on an eagle. But this one, you can clearly see there is a connection with Shravana Nakshatra and listening to his devotees.
That is so beautiful. So he was rescuing the elephant from the jaws of Makara.
Makara, exactly.
And
Which is we say Makara.
In Sanjay's tradition, from Andrew Foss, I've learned that they teach that Makara is very much connected to Kaliyug.
Wow. Okay.
So that there's this whole theme that you're describing is very important. I think actually this is beautiful for Shravana. Shravana people, you guys should pray, 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 pray. Like when you're in trouble, when you're in danger. And I have noticed that with Shravana people, they do have either an ability to rescue or an ability to pray and be heard.
Heard, exactly.
That's so profound. And the elephant's so interesting. I wonder how that's just fascinating that it's an elephant of all animals. I'm sure there's some significance.
There's a significance because you told us that, what is the previous nakshatra? The previous nakshatra.
Elephant's tusk, doubt, Uttarashada.
It's the task of, he used that as a scribe. And what is Shravana? Shravana is he writing the Mahabharata, listening to Vedavyas Rishi. And he couldn't say a word, because what was the pact between him and Vedavyas Rishi? I'm going to narrate the whole Mahabharata and you are never going to stop me. And if you stop writing, I will stop narrating. It was all about the scribe who was ready with breaking his tusk in Uttarashada, which is Ganapati, Ganesha, and Shravana is all about writing the Mahabharata. Just listening to Vedavyas.
Hearing it flow. Hearing it flow. So it is the rescuing of the conflict that's happening in Uttarashada.
Absolutely.
That elephant in this case, that elephant of whatever is happening, that conflict. And Uttarashada and Purvashada are very strong energies, I mean, you get very powerful people in history with those moons, right? Like, I mean, just for better or for worse, like Hitler, people. And then you get Vivekananda, so you get people, they're very strong people, but even those people, have to pray to Lord Vishnu when they're in the jaws of Kaliyug.
Exactly. And if you really think the esoteric meaning why an elephant, elephant is metaphorically is the largest land animal. So it's an earthy sign, Makar Rashi. Okay, it's an earthy sign. On the earth plane, no matter how big your problem is, if you still cry out to Lord Vishnu, he will come and he will listen to his devotees. So the elephant might be the size of the problem that you have. The weight.
That's beautiful. Oh my God, that's so beautiful, Dr. Paiji, because I feel like that just summarized that really, if people can truly draw that image, if they really understand how sublime the simplicity of that is. It's very simple, but it's so sublime. It's really the answer of Shravana. It really is what Shravana is. And that's the, it's fascinating because the jaws of the Kaliyug, I mean, what are the features of that Makara? What are the features of that crocodile? I mean, it's just torn. Everything's torn. Nothing makes sense. People are against each other for no reason. It's just absolute falsehood everywhere. So there's almost no rescuing other than the humility of even if you're an elephant of a person, or you have an elephant of a problem, as you were saying, it doesn't matter what it is. Give that weight to Lord Vishnu, give that weight to Lord Vishnu. Yeah.
I think Aditya, no, we have just hijacked this whole thing.
Dr. Paiji and I hijacked you. Yeah,
Okay,
I can just take this.
Fine. So there were some good points. I just have few more slides, and it's good that we discussed why Vishnu says that, why Krishna says that among Adityas he is the Vishnu, because remember, Vaman was born to Aditi, so he also becomes an Aditya, so he also becomes the younger brother of Indra and other gods. So that's one point. Quickly, because let's go to the other slides. Shravana month is, as it comes in the month of August and September. Right now we have the Shravana month going on. An entire month is a holy month for Hindus, correct? In India right now we have daily festivals. So this is a Shravana month and we have daily festivals coming up. And remember why this month is called Shravana? Because the full moon occurs in the Shravana Nakshatra. So okay, that's why we have Shravana month. This month is called a Shravana month. And that's why the Shravana Nakshatra, the constellation of Aquila is very good to see right now in this month of August, because the entire night you can see the stars of Shravana. So now the question now, name an Indian leader who did play an important role in integration after independence. Any idea?
Sardar Patel.
Exactly. Does he, and what Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel was called?
Iron Man. Yeah.
Exactly. He was born on 31st October 1875. A mass is in the Shravana Nakshatra, first pada. Integration, land themes, Iron Man of India. Then again, when I was thinking about this independence, an important person comes in the mind, Mahatma Gandhi ji, where he is able to collect all people together and fight for India's independence. Again, Ketu in Shravana Nakshatra in first pada. Subhash Chandra Bose, he made the INA, Indian National Army. Sun in Shravana Nakshatra. It's very close to Shravana Nakshatra and Uttarashada. So it's very, very close to that. So all these people, you see how they have the ability to come collect people together and then fight for a cause. And what is the common theme between all of them? Independence, freedom, land themes. Remember, opposite of Shravana is what? Cancer, the fourth house, homeland. So that's
liberation as well. That vision, the liberation of others.
Exactly. So definite themes of land, property, country, real estate. What happened to Vamana? The story of Vamana, Mahabali, he took away all the land. So again, themes of land, property, real estate, it's one of the themes which you can see from Shravana Nakshatra. Now the thing now, the present day, Elon Musk, you see, what is he trying to connect? Because he's sending all this space, I don't know what all satellites and other things, connecting our Earth with the skies, with other planets, or with moon and other with the space basically. What did Vamana do? He enlarged himself, covered all the space. Correct. With one footstep, he covered the land and the Brahmalok. In second footstep, I think he covered the what is that? The Brahmalok, I guess. One footstep covered the earth. Second footstep, he covered the Brahmalok. Third footstep, there was no space, so he Mahabali said, "Put on my feet."
And the graha science. He has the graha of science in Shravana.
So that's space expansion, and who is now doing all the space expansion? Elon Musk. So I thought maybe I should see his chart. Maybe Elon Musk is like connecting Earth with the space.
Very interesting.
Company called SpaceX, right? SpaceX.
And he has an obsession with Mars a bit, which that Sampat Nakshatra.
Yeah, his Mars is conjunct Rahu, also Mars in the Nishta conjunct Rahu for Elon Musk. Yeah, in Capricorn. Yeah.
There you go. Oh, that's a powerful yoga, actually. Yeah.
So Rahu in Shravana Nakshatra. But anyway, I think Sandeep, I think this was my last. I was saying last satellite, last slide.
But that's interesting, Togiji, because I was just trying to describe exactly what you did with Elon Musk, someone who's very much on the earth. However, they're also in the ethers.
Yes.
That's it is a theme, actually. Or very high idealism, like you're saying with Gandhiji and some of the others, like high idealism, and at the same time, very much right here. Hands-on. Yeah, fascinating.
I think Aditya, you'll have to make him the host now, so he can share his screen. Something he can.
Yeah, I don't have any slides, Dr. Pai. That's fine. So so UG, did you have anything more to share? Anything more to add on what Aditya had said and so forth?
No.
Okay. Okay. Well, one thing I just thought it was interesting because we were just talking about Vamana, and you had a statue of Vamana. You know, I would like if you could show that statue of Vamana to audience. You know, it's like it'd be very interesting. Just to highlight some point. Now it's like it's you can see in the statue he's carrying a kamandalu on one arm, and what else is he carrying? The other arm is a mudra, if I'm not mistaken, right? Or is there an umbrella too?
Mudra. Yeah.
Mudra, yeah, that's a mudra. And that's a Vamana avatar, right? That's the statue of Vamana avatar, actually. So it's very interesting. You know, it's very rare to find a statue of Vamana avatar and so forth. You know, interesting. I was reading one of these marketing emails which I got on this Vamana on Tiruvanam special day. You know, apparently, like as per Srimad Bhagavatam, Vamana was actually gifted a lot of things, a lot of sacred items as a young child when he was born of Mother Aditi. You know, the first thing was actually Surya taught him Gayatri mantra as an initiation. It's a very important thing. Second thing is that Brihaspati gifted him the sacred thread, you know, which is born by a typical Brahmin in India. Sage Kashyapa, Vamana's father, gifted him a sacred string made of munja grass, which is the waistcoat of a Brahmin. And then Aditi Vamana's mother gifted him Kaupina Basana, a sacred underwear to cover him. You know, that's an interesting thing again. Mother Earth gave him asana, a seat made of black antelope hide. And then Moon gifted Vamana a Brahmadanda, a staff of a Brahmin. Moon gifted him that. Sky Cosmos gave him an umbrella, which is very interesting. The Saptarishi, 7 sages, gifted him Kusha grass, a Darba grass. And creator archetype Brahma gave him a water pot. And goddess Saraswati adorned him with rosary beads. So all these deities are very fascinating because you see these wise deities, wise gods and goddesses helping out. Like first is actually Saraswati. In fact, UG has mentioned before that Shravana is actually considered as the seat of Saraswati. That's a very interesting point. And you also have the Saptarishis also coming in. You also have the Brihaspati himself coming in and so forth. Now, what is very fascinating about Vamana avatar, it is the actual avatar of Vishnu actually linked with Jupiter. That is one thing we tend to forget. So one interesting thing to do whenever you have a planet in Shravana is to look at what exactly Jupiter is also doing. That kind of gives you a hidden clue with respect to what actually the nakshatra energy will actually play itself out also. It's a subtle thing. There are some nakshatras that are very peculiar in that regard because one, you have Vamana avatar of Shravana Nakshatra, and then you have Pushya Nakshatra of Brihaspati, which is actually directly Jupiter also. But then the other nakshatra also is that of Mrigashira, which is ruled by Soma. You know, Mrigashira, Soma himself being the moon god himself, you know. So that's an interesting kind of thing. Now, the umbrella of Vamana avatar is very interesting because you actually see umbrella is he's described as a dwarf Brahmin who comes with an umbrella. That's a very interesting thing, description also. Now, and it's very interesting that the form of Vishnu that is described as the Vamana avatar is actually Trivikrama form. You know, so it's very interesting because I went to this temple in Kanchipuram once, and then it was a Vamana temple. It's very rare to go to an actual Vamana temple. There's one in Kerala somewhere. But this temple, you go to that shrine, and it's a huge 30-foot mural on stone mural, and it's like very expansive. You know, it's very expansive. It's like you can't see the top. You have to literally look up. It's almost like Vamana avatar is like huge mural upon the wall, and it's like a huge thing going on. You never expect. Usually, you see an idol who's probably like 10, 15 feet height or at the most, or something like that, at a Vishnu temple or something like that. This is a huge idol, so it kind of shows how expansive that Vamana avatar is. So whatever UG mentioned about knowledge, history, all that, you know, so these natives are carrying that immense amount of knowledge. That's something very, very interesting kind of thing there, you know. So definitely there is an expansion element. There is a connection directly with space, which is what Aditya also referred to with, you know, Elon Musk and so forth, how he's expanded with space. Now, actually, to get some signals from space, you actually have the umbrella-like device, which is your dish antenna. You know, you want a cable TV, you know, put your dish antenna outside so you can actually get the signal. So you are actually using an umbrella.
People say
exactly.
Connection, they use the word.
Exactly that. So you are actually using the dish to actually connect with this satellite. Literally, again, what Aditya was saying, you know, it's not an accident, I think. You know, you can actually connect the satellites also with the umbrella kind of energy, you know. So that's a very interesting kind of thing with Vamana, you know. And also, I do believe that with Shravana Nakshatra, because the mother is also Aditi, and deity of Punvasu Nakshatra being Aditi, they do have a special link with Punvasu also. There is an energetic kind of link that will just play itself out. You know, perhaps these natives might be getting more nurturing from a Punvasu native or vice versa, something like that. You know, perhaps they might treat the native and the native with the Punvasu Nakshatra as like their mother or support. That kind of thing can actually happen. Now, what is also very interesting with the three steps is that, of course, these natives can be excellent dancers. I've seen that they might actually study dancing. They are classical dancers, depending upon the upon the kind of planet that is there in Shravana, they'll do that kind of planetary dancing. Depending if it's Rahu is crazy dancing, Jupiter classical dancing, Venus like much more modern dancing, couple dancing and so forth. And then I've seen that kind of thing play out also. And definitely there is this theme of walking also. What Dr. Pai also mentioned is that there is this theme of walking long distances. That's something a Shravana native is comfortable doing. I've seen that they have no problem walking long distances. And what is very interesting about Shravana is that there are certain pilgrimages which you're supposed to do walking. So for instance, Tirupati instance. Tirupati is one pilgrimage where you can do the whole walking kind of thing going on. And there's also the short route and there is a long route. And even for Sabrimala itself, to go to Ayyappa temple, you have the long route as well as the short route. But still, you have to climb the walking kind of thing. And there are actually many Christian kind of pilgrimages. I got a Mexican client who actually, she had some planets in Shravana. I actually asked him, did you do any kind of walking pilgrimages? And apparently there are some churches where you have to walk for an entire day to get to that church to make a prayer and so forth. And that's how it's traditionally done. And there are many systems about it and so forth. So very interesting kind of thing. I've seen that kind of a pilgrimage actually helps them out. The more time they're spending on a pilgrimage.
Sandeepji, just real quick, I don't think we've mentioned that Vamana puts his foot on Bali's head as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like you bringing up the journey of the feet.
Exactly.
There's something constantly with this theme of the feet and Vishnu.
Yes, exactly. Definitely. There is a direct link with feet of Vishnu also. Many times I've seen that they will actually go to temples where where they actually worship the feet of Vishnu. I've seen that also. Many times there are many temples where there are footprints. There are Hanuman's footprints there, Shiva's footprints there. That kind of temple they will actually end up going also. I've seen that. And there is definitely a feet of Vishnu is actually worshipped also. You actually worship Lakshmi's, feet of Vishnu. That's a direct thing you actually worship as well. In fact, what is very fascinating is also as far as the feet is concerned, one very interesting and fascinating thing is that of the Guru Pataka Stotram. You are actually worshipping the feet of the Guru. And there's an actual Stotram, which normally people do it on the Guru Purnima day and so forth, in which you are actually worshipping the feet of the Guru. In fact, even Lord Ram's feet, slippers or sandals were worshipped by Bharat. And I do think that's by Bharata. Exactly.
The sandals, the wooden sandals,
Exactly that. So that's literally worshipping the feet of Lord Ram as well. So similarly, what is interesting with respect to the feet of the Guru, I've seen that they have a special blessing from the feet of a Guru when they touch the feet of the Guru. I've seen that. Because Jupiter, Multrikon sign, is actually Sagittarius, which is falling in the 12th house from Shravana Nakshatra as the ascendant. So when they touch the feet of the Guru, in fact, they are actually activating a natural 9th house of the zodiac. So touching the feet of the Guru, one of the big thing I tell to these natives to actually, depending upon what planet is there, touch the feet of their father, touch the feet of their mother, touch the feet of their elder, touch the feet of their spouse. Many times you see a reluctance there, wives don't want to touch the feet of the husband, husbands don't want to help out the wife's feet and stuff like that, that kind of thing. But there's a lot of blessing there, in fact, if you have a planet there, touching the feet of a Guru is a great blessing you can actually get. In fact, listening to the Guru Padaka Stotra is very, very powerful. I cannot emphasize that enough, So there is an actual connection with the feet and stuff. Now, the three steps are also very powerful kind of thing. The three is in my world of my knowledge of nakshatras, I would say anything three is Shravana. That's what I come down to. That's the conclusion I come down to. Anything three is Shravana. So Trivakrama is Shravana, and you have the Trimurti, that is also Shravana. And what is interesting is that you can connect with anything three. So you could say like trilogy, three stories. Even in fact, the Star Wars trilogy. George Lucas, as a planet in Shravana, he has created the entire trilogy. The first series of trilogy was that's what he created. An epic. Exactly.
Like the
exactly.
The Shravana,
exactly. Yeah, and then he actually ended up the entire series ended up having three of it itself, three different trilogies happening itself also. The first trilogy was great, the second trilogy didn't do well, third trilogy was okay, fine, commercial success done by Disney and all that, but then whatever. But there's an actual connection with space. You can see Star Wars was a complete space thing, and listening is a very important thing. I've seen that in one way or the other they do go for big listening device. They are audiophiles. These are the ones who will actually go and purchase those expensive Bose headphones you see out there. Those expensive $300, $500 Bose headphones, they'll actually buy it and they'll be listening to it. And that's what makes them peace, because they need that kind of listening kind of thing. They understand the nuances of music and so forth. That's a natural thing. So it's a very interesting thing, which what Dr. Pai was mentioning about that also. And one interesting thing is that with listening also comes listening to your inner voice. So that's an interesting thing. Not many people actually listen to your inner voice. Like what Eve was saying, how do you actually listen to the voice of God within? So that's why you actually have to maintain a time of silence. And there is a very common thing. Many people go for retreats, silence retreats and so forth, to actually listen to their own intuition. Many times I've seen that sometimes with planets, depending upon the planets in Shravana, I've seen that these natives can be gifted with amazing intuitive voice guiding them. I've had clients telling me, I've heard angels speak, but I cannot say about this in public. But I get these guidance and so forth. That's extremely powerful. And then there are people who say all kinds of crazy things. You never know who is actually giving you guidance. But again, depending upon the planet, it could be the angels or could be the demons also. That's the other thing. So you really have to be careful about what you're listening to. So you definitely have to do the purificatory kind of thing, so that you are entering into that kind of protective space where good energies are interacting with you. That's one thing I've seen. So sometimes it's very common for a Shravana Nakshatra native to go through a vow of silence because of that. They'll do this Vamana Vrat. These are natives are much more inclined to go silent, and then they won't speak. But there's an actual internal process that is very active for them that's happening when they do that thing also. That's an important thing also, with Mauna Vrat and so forth. Now, again, with Mauna Vrat and vow silence also, one important word and important mantra I always link with Shravana is that of the mantra Om. So Om, you can write a lot with that. Om is actually linked directly with Jupiter also. Om is having three different sounds, A, U, Ma sound, the Vishnu, the Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh, Trimurti is linked with Om. And I've seen that they do have a link with Om. They have a special thing going on with Om also. They can actually chant the mantra Om. That can be a powerful meditation. They do have something going on that front also. There's a lot of things. And literally Om as a mantra can take you to different higher planes also in the end. When you come in with that mantra Om. And it's a very powerful thing with Om itself. I've seen that also. Now, of course, Om is also linked with the planet Jupiter. So like I said, what is very interesting about Shravana Nakshatra natives, just like how that dwarf expanded to a giant, these natives will actually become huge giants in whatever field they are involved in. So they might be like a total beginner and complete novice, that eventually they'll actually end up becoming a huge giant in their field. And that's a very common thing I've seen. Many times the expansion happens threefold. I've seen that, usually they might have three different, their salary increases three different times, tripling of the salary happens. They might actually end up traveling to three different cities. Like there is a three city kind of thing. I've seen that kind of thing happen a lot. Three cities kind of linked, three cities having a story, traveling to three cities constantly, traveling to three different countries constantly, and so forth. Even to the point where they are willing to travel 3 hours to meet a guru and even come back 3 hours also. This traveling of 3 hours, 30 minutes, that kind of thing is very, very common. I've seen that kind of a travel a lot. Usually anything with three, that's a big thing also. And what is also fascinating is also, there is also this, there is an actual offering that is given to deities, which is called as Trimadur, in which you actually put like honey, banana, and some sugar, some kalkandi, and so forth. You can actually offer that to any deity. So in fact, you can offer that to Subramanya, you can offer that to Saraswati, you can offer that to any deity. So if you have a planet in Shravana, you can do that as a remedy, give that as an offering to the deities and so forth. Offering a Trimadur. That's a simple thing I've seen. The other thing also I've seen is that there is definitely a link with three, and definitely I've seen sometimes they might have to listen to three different advices. So I think in one of the examples which Dr. Pai had taught us, Ben Affleck, and I think it's the other guy, Matt Damon. Matt Damon, who, when they made that movie Good Will Hunting, they actually had to listen to three different advisors before they could actually actually get the script made into a movie and so forth, and that became an Oscar award-winning script and so forth. So you'll find that there's three different things actually coming up, and there's a very important thing with three. It's almost like you're bringing the three murtis in place. One advisor will have a Brahma theme, the other advisor will have a Vishnu theme, the other advisor might have a Shiva kind of theme going on, and there'll be a complete kind of thing going on that front. That's why with the vow of silence also, it is kind of making Dakshinamurti as a very important guru. So Dakshinamurti kind of mantras are very, very powerful here. I've seen that extremely, extremely powerful. And Dakshinamurti is also having this link with Sanat Kumara also. That's also a very important thing. Now, very interesting is that if you've seen Game of Thrones, you actually see a dwarf character who is extremely wise. In my view, that is actually a Shravana kind of character. That's a Vamana avatar. That's a very powerful character, and he's there through the entire thing as a powerful advisor. He's a perfect epitome of Shravana in my view. That's an interesting thing. And many times I've seen that they do have karma with vertically challenged people. I've seen that. Now this can happen in two different ways. I've seen that either they might have literally challenging karma with biscuits, like they are older in the company and so forth, then they're having to deal with a strong viscid kind of personality, like some youngster is coming and literally willing to pull them down from their position, and they actually have a challenging karma from that, because like just how Vamana was a dwarf Brahmin child who appeared in front of Mahabali, the great king, and he actually ended up losing his entire kingdom. Now that is also the other side of Shravana, which I've seen. There is sometimes a karma of loss of land. At some point, they lose land. At some point. Now, depending upon the planets, I've seen that sometimes it could be like small amount of land. Sometimes it can be like some loss of land happening because some legal issues, some kind of inheritance not coming through. I've seen that, but there is definitely a strong land-related karma. So depending upon the planets you have there, you have to be extremely careful with dealing with that. So sometimes it can be just a small thing. Okay, your neighbor wants to expand your pathway. Okay, fine. You are actually, you just extend your land, you lose maybe like a yard or whatever, that kind of thing. But sometimes I've seen it can be like hardcore inheritance problem, and as is typical in Indian family, there's a lot of inheritance kind of things going on. That's also one of the things I've seen with Shravana also. Now, the other aspect is that we have to also remember that this is also nakshatra ruled by moon, and moon is also karka for mirrors. So one thing I actually mentioned in the long back in the Grahas class is how the Aztecs and a lot of alchemists use obsidian mirrors to actually connect in shamanic trance times. When they do look at a mirror at the reflection of the sun, eventually they are able to connect with their ancestors and stuff. So I've seen that they have a very powerful thing going on in which they are actually able to travel the planes of reality by using a mirror also at some point. And there are very special mirrors in Kerala. For instance, there is an actual Aranmula mirror, which again, it's a very special mirror, and that's an actual powerful thing. That's a secretive alchemical mirror, which is actually carrying the energy of the Aranmula goddess there. That's a very powerful thing, and you can actually buy that stuff. You can actually buy that and keep that, and that's considered to be a decorative element for the goddess also. And that's a very powerful remedy for Shravana, because that's the Sattvic nakshatra of moon also. And you are kind of connecting with the deepest aspect of moon here also. Now again, with the listening part, it's also a very powerful thing, because many times I've seen karmas with translation. They actually have karma with the translation. Either their karka is having to translate one language to the other. They worked as a translator to one. These are natives who might translate one classic to the modern times. These are natives who might translate literally German, Sanskrit documents to like English documents, literally. That kind of translation karma I've seen, which is also requiring what Dr. Pai mentioned about listening and so forth. You have to listen to it, and then you have to write it down and so forth. And translators definitely do to listen, otherwise they can't do their job. And many times I've seen that depending upon the planet like Saturn, they're forced to actually listen to and translate also. Now, easiest remedy for Shravana is that listen to the person who is Karka in that particular nakshatra. You're forced to listen to that person eventually. One way or the other, you will end up listening to that person. That's what ends up happening. Like what Aditya also mentioned in the slide about when you listen to it, you can actually resolve your dispute also. Now, what did Mahabali do? He ended up not listening to Shukracharya. Shukracharya in this modern context is Venus. Venus is actually a spouse. Many times these are natives who won't listen to their spouse, and they'll end up suffering because of it. It's just straightforward as that. You can see that. That's a common thing you will see. And so again, Shukracharya is Venus. That's a very direct kind of thing. Now, Shravana also, one interesting thing is that there are certain temples in India in which there are goddesses that appear in threes. Like in the morning time, the goddess is of one form. For instance, the Kollur Mookambika temple in Karnataka. It's in the morning time, it's like, goddess Saraswati. Middle noon time, it's like Lakshmi. Evening time, it's like Parvati. And then goddesses, and you have the corresponding thing in a temple in Kerala called as the Chottanikara temple also. And there are many other temples like that. Many other temples where the three faces of gods are present. There are temples where there are three different deities present. Perhaps there are even temples where there are three different shrines present. So I've seen all these variation with this particular Shravana as well. These kind of temples can give you a very, very powerful thing also there, And it's very fascinating because I've seen that the animal monkey is also deserving a special mention also. In fact, I don't know if you're familiar with Dragon Ball Z. Dragon Ball Z is this anime which is very quite popular and so forth. You actually have this characters who become Super Saiyan, and they actually become powerful monkeys. That's the origin thing there. And that ended up becoming a trilogy that expanded and became a complete series by itself. In fact, I actually I was talking with a friend, and he actually said there isn't a whole thing about the Monkey King. The whole Monkey King epic is actually based on as a legendary. It's kind of variation of Hanuman story, you could say. They almost link that with the Hanuman.
In
And
China,
but in this,
there's a
in
story
China,
about the Monkey
I-
King.
yeah, there's a new series on Netflix, right? Exactly, you can see that. So in this thing, in the Monkey King, he actually goes and he's accompanying a scholar, and he's protecting the scholar, so the scholar is getting some text, and the scholar can come back to home, so that he can actually encourage dharma and bring back dharma and so forth. And literally that, you will see that many times these natives do have karmas like that. They have to actually end up listening to a scholar and so forth, and that kind of karma do play on. And definitely 100%. And Hanuman is the deity who is prayed to, especially Sundarkand portion of Ramayana is actually read right now during Shravan month also. Especially everyone is reading Ramayana and all that. But then the Sundarkand portion of Ramayana is done read so that you can go abroad and be safe and so forth. So that your children can be safe and so forth also. So Ramayana and Hanuman is a very special deity here with Shravana. And Hanuman is one deity whom, if you end up listening to, you can actually end up getting a lot of good things also. And you'll see that many times these natives do big time Hanuman kind of thing going on. They go to Hanuman temples. All that Hanuman kind of thing can be a very natural thing. The moment they connect with Hanuman's energy, literally their life changes and so forth. And what
just quickly, just right here for everyone listening, Hanumanji's main power is what?
devotion, right? I don't know.
Yeah,
Ashtasiddhi.
devotion.
Yeah.
It's so simple. But it's really powerful for this nakshatra because of the prayer and the Vishnu hears devotion more than he hears anything else. Yeah, that's just.
Yeah.
I just wanted to have that internal breath there because that's key.
And just thanks for bringing this, Santhip and Eve Ji. If you just see behind Eve Ji, you can see Hanuman with the Sanjeevani, and he's carrying the mountain. Now, what many people do not understand is, or probably do not know, is Shravana Nakshatra is a Chara Nakshatra. Chara means movable. Even though it is in a fixed sign of Capricorn, it's a Chara Nakshatra. It's movable. So Hanuman is the moving.
So it's double.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's double. Sorry,
So,
Dr. Yeah.
so it shows, if we can have a flying, Hanuman with the mountain, because Sanjeevani is bringing that Venus quality of Sanjeevani is more of trying to revive, so you can see this whole thing with Chara, Shravana Nakshatra, movement, and Hanuman, because it's, we have said monkeys, and the Venus element is the herbs. What we're talking about, Shatabhishak, you said, is the third nakshatra, which is more to do with Vipat. It's a Vipat nakshatra from Shravana Nakshatra. And one more point which I would want to really acknowledge what Santhip mentioned, which I really like, was the letter Om. And he said Om has the three kar, which is A, O, which has Brahma, Vishnu, and Mahesh. The Makar is. And if you really see from Shravana Nakshatra, the 13th nakshatra is Punarvasu, and the 13th nakshatra is the Shema Nakshatra, and Punarvasu's deity is Aditi, the mother of Vamana. And the 13th nakshatra you see from Ashwini Nakshatra is Hasta Nakshatra, and Hasta Nakshatra is Gayatri Mantra. Similarly, for all Shravana Nakshatra, Omkar, because that is resonates with the mother's energy, because Aditi is Punarvasu. So the 13th Shema Nakshatra you see with Omkar, and that is what I saw, that there was so much of correlation that I see. And what happens is the 14th nakshatra, which becomes Pratyaka Nakshatra, is Pushya Nakshatra. Pushya is Brahaspati, an advisor. So Mahabali didn't listen to the advisor. That became the Pratyak for him, the obstacle. So not listening to somebody becomes an obstacle. Good counsel, sometimes they do not listen to. So Shravana needs to be open to listen to good counseling, good advice, because Brahaspati's nakshatra, which is Pushya, gets Pratyak. Okay, so these are some very beautiful things. And one more thing that I will also add to, once Santi finishes, Jupiter gets, debilitated in Capricorn in general, wherever Shravana is falling. And I have seen, if you pray to any Vishnu, which is made of gold, because Jupiter is gold, and debilitation can only be killed through, gold. So a Vishnu in a temple, which is, the main temple for Vishnu, where you can go and do that, is going up the stairs or steps, is, Tirupati. Tirupati, everybody goes there with the steps. So it is the three steps that we are taking. We are going to a hill place, and you see everything on the sanctum is gold. And I will show you another figure where I made this point, and maybe I can do it right now before Santhip continues. If Aditya can give me 1 second just to show you this picture, and I'll show you the connection with Shravana Nakshatra very, very prominently with this. So,
Guys, I feel irresponsible if I don't mention that Dr. Lodji, Dr. Vasant Lod, his lineage, they say to be very careful about people just chanting Om alone without a bija.
Yeah, that's true.
Unless you want to become a sannyas.
Yeah.
It's the only mantra that will literally strip you of everything. So I just wanted to say that in case.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. When you chant Om, it comes with its own, like any mantra, it comes with its own danger and so forth. But it's very.
Is there possibly a remedial bija that you would recommend to go along with the Om in case a person doesn't want to be stripped naked?
Yeah, I can definitely recommend Hum.
They don't want to become Mahabali, right? It's like
yeah.
all the material. It's very interesting that you brought up Om because that's exactly what Dr. Lod said happens is that
why? Why? Is because if Om is associated with Punarvasu. So Om has a multiplier effect. And whatever comes after Om can be multiplied. Just like Punarvasu of the repetition, right? So Omkar always has to be followed with some sound. If there is no sound, you are only repeating the void which comes after Om. The void is nothingness, the emptiness. So that is the mantra. It's a moksha mantra. Just like Mahamrityunjaya is a moksha.
And it's just interesting that you guys both tuned into because I was thinking, I was like, oh, this is fascinating because this is what it would be. It would
be exactly. Yeah, no, it is true. But
taking the
just
kingdom from you. It would take
so definitely. So I can definitely recommend that, but key thing is that when you do Om, definitely you should be doing some kind of the best mantras to chant with any Sahasranama mantras do very well with Shravana Nakshatra. Any again, why Sahasranama? Because 1000 is having 3 zeros, 1000 names, right? So 1000 names of Narasimha, 1000 names of Saraswati, 1000 names of Lakshmi, 1000 names of Vishnu. Lalita Sahasranama, those kind of Lalita Sahasranama is the best remedy for all kind of things. That's one thing I can definitely say. I can definitely say even Vishnu Sahasranama is a hardcore remedy of that also. Any kind of, but even with Om also, I can definitely recommend any kind of beach mantra that you resonate with. I don't see any problem with that. Because what I would say is that with all kind of deities can be approached through a beach mantra also. Definitely when you meditate upon Om, it's a very powerful meditation, as Evji mentioned. It is very true. When you begin to meditate upon Om, the whole world begins to dissolve just as Om sounds. You don't see any other, you don't hear any other sound. You only hear Om everywhere. Om, the fan is going, that's Om. The cat is meowing, that's a Om. The dog is barking, that becomes an Om. That gets to a point. Definitely, that can definitely upset you and so forth. So definitely, Shravana Nakshatra, definitely there is a challenge there because you do get introverted very easily because there's a loud universe kind of thing going inside. And definitely there is a challenge for these natives to come outside, and that takes its own time and effort also. That's one thing definitely. But yeah, as a beach mantra, I can definitely recommend any beach mantra. You literally Google beach mantras, any devas you like. The first mantra that comes your way, I would definitely recommend that. Usually with Shravana though, I would really recommend worshipping 3 different deities. Now, a very interesting deity I came across recently is this called as the three Mahaganapati. A very interesting deity from an academic research point of view, because three Mahaganapati is supposedly the Mahaganapati. Ganapati itself is the great record keeper and so forth. Now, three Mahaganapati is the version of Ganapati who is actually the bond between the Shakteya kind of system and the Shaivite kind of system and the Vaishnavite kind of system. So three Mahaganapati is an actual deity that's out there. That you can do it. Now, I would definitely recommend if you're starting mantra, you have no experience in mantra, start with Ganapati. That's what I would recommend. Ganesha is a very, very powerful deity whom we don't know. I think even Dr. Pai.
Wonderful. That's what I was kind of feeling. I was wondering if you would support that or not, but I was just thinking that they could add Ganapati. And then to what Dr. Paiji was saying about all the conflict that's constantly happening between the, you know, it's like one path or this path, three paths, right? So you're kind of solving it. That's interesting because there's the Trishul, there's the three
Yeah,
Neta, three eyes.
yeah,
You know, all of
yeah,
those features even connected to Lord Shiva, right?
right.
But yeah, that sounds beautiful. Yeah, I just wanted to
No,
say that in case.
right, right, right. Yeah, no, that's good
Someone
thing
doesn't
you
want
pointed
to
that out.
become a rishi.
Yeah, good. Yeah, good thing that people you raised it up. Now, one thing I want to say was one of the first thing which Dr. Pai mentioned was actually the beginning point, how the names of Shravana Nakshatra is called as Ashwata, Ananda, and Shruti, and so forth. You know, if you make Shravana Nakshatra as the ascendant, the exact fourth house cusp is actually falling in Ashwini Nakshatra, which makes that Ashwata name very interesting. You have the Ananda name, the direct you make the last degree of Shravana as the ascendant. The exact cusp, seventh house cusp is going to fall in Ashlesha, which is making the Ananda name as very interesting also. And then Shruti definitely makes sense with respect to Dhanishta, as you were saying, as the Sampat Nakshatra and so forth. So it's a very interesting thing in which you can actually see these kind of nakshatra aspects playing out. And even the exact fourth house cusp from the last degree portion of Shravana is actually falling in Barni also. So there is a very direct kind of link with Barni. One way or the other, there is a karma with Barni also. You know, it's almost like you have to die from one plane to get to the next plane. You know, literally that kind of thing going on. You know, so it's a very
Also became Yama.
exactly, yeah. So it's very interesting that it's very interesting that you mentioned that one story has this Yama kind of theme going. You know, and one last, and there are a couple of charts which made me very which makes Shravana very interesting. So one great chart which Aditya raised was Elon Musk's chart of Rahu being in Shravana, you know, the space thing and so forth. The other thing is that of Vivekananda's chart, which actually Yuji mentioned. Vivekananda actually has Mercury in Shravana. And what is fascinating about Vivekananda's chart is that he went to Chicago, he traveled long distance to actually deliver a lecture, and in which the first words he uttered were my brothers and sisters, you know, my dear brothers and sisters from Chicago or something like that, you know. But the key word is he used Mercury kind of Karka words, and that's what expanded his stature. Suddenly, then people, you know, for the next 10 minutes, they were just giving him a big applause. I've seen that kind of theme play out a lot with planets in Shravana. They one way or the other, their stature just expands at some point. The point could take a lot of long distance, and it might take some time, but eventually it will definitely expand. And my final point I have is that of this actual link with Satabhisha Nakshatra with Shravana. That is one thing I'm beginning to find. There's an indirect, what I'm thinking, at least from a Pai Padidi perspective, because Shravana is actually falling in Capricorn and is ruled by Saturn, and Saturn is having its Mulatrikon in Satabhisha Nakshatra. Perhaps there is a direct link because of by virtue of the Rashi where it's falling in being a Saturn ruled Rashi. And I do think that Varuna is there is definitely a big link between Satabhisha and Shravana also. So it's very interesting kind of thing because,
The Aditya for Makara is Varuna.
no, interesting. That's very interesting. So that makes sense. Now, what is interesting is that when you chant a Vishnu Sahasranama or when you chant any Sahasranama, what actually will happen is that you're going around the entire nakshatra zodiac. That's what is actually happening. And depending upon the pada where you have problem, that particular mantra will be problematic. The recitation of that mantra will be problematic. The karmas are not allowing you to chant that particular mantra name. And eventually you get to a point where you can eventually overcome that kind of thing also. The same logic can be applied with the 108 names also, where you're going around the entire zodiac and so forth. But more so with any sahasranama. With sahasranama, you can be much more subtle about the karma that you are actually accessing. So that's one thing. You know, one big thing I can definitely recommend for any of the natives eventually is to learn any sahasranama mantras with your heart. You know, get to a point where you can recite that from memory. That's a challenge I can definitely give for any Shravana Nakshatra native, and they'll be happy to do that. You know, but if they do so, your life will completely change. You know, you can chant any sahasranama mantra. So if you have Rahu, you can chant Kali sahasranama mantra, Mars Narasimha sahasranama mantra, you know, Venus Lakshmi sahasranama mantra, Mercury Vishnu sahasranama, Jupiter also Vishnu sahasranama, Mercury can be Ganesha, Ketu also Ganesha sahasranama, you know, Sun can be Shiva sahasranama and so forth, you know, Moon can be Lalita sahasranama, even Venus can be Lalita sahasranama also, you know. So I've seen that there is an actual effect when you actually learn something, you make that mantra by heart. There's an actual effect. It's as if that mantra is working at you at a karmically soul level directly. It's working in the etheric space. It's a very powerful thing that I can encourage people to do so. And even if you begin by just learning the 32 names of Ganesha first, then you learn the 108 names of Ganesha first, and so forth. And eventually you get to a point without repetition where you can learn the entire Sahasranama mantra. Doesn't mean that, you know, I'm not saying that it's an intellectual kind of process. I'm saying that there is an actual spiritual process that can also play out eventually when you absorb the energy of the mantras with your heart.
These people, like you mentioned Vivekananda. Look what he did. He just stood at the podium and just spoke.
Yeah.
He just spoke. He didn't. He wasn't fumbling through notes, or and even when he chanted, even he spoke some Sanskrit. Remember, like if you hear the, so he, it was just a flow. It was a flow. Yeah.
Well, now as a simple remedy, I can say a couple of simple things. Like say if you have a record, many times you will find these natives do have a karma with recordings, with voice messages, with listening with headphones. That kind of thing is very common. And what I've seen is that one simple remedy is to record that karaka of that planet voice and listen to it. So say you have a mother who is willing to chant mantras, listen to that mantra chanted in your mother's voice, for instance. If you have Venus there, listen to your spouse's voice, for instance, that kind of thing. I've seen also another remedy because of this link with Brahmins is to actually feed 3 Brahmins, so feed 3 scholars, honor 3 scholars, that's a simple thing. Honor 3 Brahmins, take care of, host 3 Brahmins in your home. In fact, I've seen that they might even listen to 3 different songs one day, that kind of listening to the same 3 songs is very common for a Shravana Nakshatra and so forth. That kind of thing is very, very strong. And what is very fascinating is that you actually find the 3 monkey statues. One is actually covering its eyes, the other is actually covering its ears, the other is actually covering its mouth also. Literally, I've seen that kind of thing going on. Like when you have that kind of statue that can actually activate Shravana Nakshatra energies also. I've seen that also. There is also corresponding equivalent in the Chinese Feng Shui kind of thing, in which you get these 3 wise men. The Chinese Feng Shui wise men, Chuck looks south, I forget the name, something like that. You actually get this corresponding thing also. And one other remedy I can also say is that definitely when you can do anything with these colors, so even if you decorated your deities on their altar with 3 different clothes, you offer 3 different flowers to the same deity, and there are some special deities who can actually accept that, that kind of thing is something I've seen that can actually grow. And usually they have a problem with tripod in their home. There's a tripod table in their home. That's a problem there. That kind of thing is very common. And Shravana, as Yuji once mentioned, they do have vast libraries. So I've seen a very important aspect also with Shravana, especially since Jupiter is having Mool Trikon in 12,000 there, is that like what I said in one of the videos about books, make sure that books are in good condition, make sure that books are covered, make sure the books are not torn and stuff like that, If the books are not without cover, it's also they don't have clothes, so you don't want that kind of thing to happen. So that's a big remedy I've seen with Jupiter and improving at Jupiter and Shravana also. That's the other thing. And you'll see these natives are constantly listening to podcasts, and they do have podcast kind of karma also. That's a constant thing I've seen. And they can do very well in podcast kind of world and all that also. I've seen that they do end up as positions where they actually end up listening to themselves in the end. That's one key thing I will say, like they do end up in positions like that. Now, I heard some very crazy stories with clients, it's literally, they have a voice guiding to do all kinds of crazy stuff. And then literally they, suddenly they are actually connecting with an Egyptian deity in the middle of nowhere and so forth, coming from proper Tamil Brahmin family and that kind of thing. So it's like you kind of see all kind of variation on that point. So it's very interesting nakshatra for sure, Shravana, but yeah, that's what I have, Dr. Pai.
I think some brilliant points, Santhip. Thank you. I think most of the things that you pointed out, I was just thinking a lot because these are some fascinating points that he brought up. And usually, I know he goes last, but he always brings the best out of the entire discussion, and he reserves everything for the end. So that's what I really it's fascinating that he brings certain points that will make you also think. So I have to say, it's just brilliant, Santhip. One point that I wanted to make, and maybe then we can slowly start wrapping up because I'm conscious of the time. I don't know how long this video is going to be.
2 hours 15 minutes.
Okay, so quickly what I wanted to show you. Okay, one key theme that you see with Shravana natives, also what I've seen is the tilak which the Vaishnavites wear. It is called as Urdhva Pundra. Urdhva Pundra is the name of the thing that you always see all the Vaishnavites, because if you see, Urdhva means up, going up. And Shravana Nakshatra is also Urdhva Mukha Nakshatra. It's a Urdhva Mukha Nakshatra, and the tilak, what every Vaishnavite will put, will differentiate, because I say it is more vertical, and you see, all the Shaivites will be the horizontal.
Horizontal.
The three horizontal things, usually you put the three horizontal. Why three? Again, three has a connection with Shravana, we said. It's not vertical, but it's horizontal, strangely. But one more thing that I wanted to share, which I had made a post on, which is very fascinating about Tirupati. Okay, no Shravana video can be done without mention of Tirupati. Tirupati is where, Srinivasa Venkateshwara Swami. Okay, it's one of the richest Vishnu temples after Ananta Padmanabha temple that you see. And what is the most important part of this is the gold that you see all over. The sanctum is completely covered in gold. Okay, but there is one ritual which I can really share with everybody, and I'll show you. The theme works so brilliantly with with this Shravana Nakshatra. The thing is, many years ago, the story goes that Krishna Devaraya, who was king at that time, he went to the temple and he saw, apparently as per the story, the priests who were worshipping, Venkateshwara inside the temple were wearing the ornaments of the deity. And he was so mad at them that he actually slayed all of them inside the temple square. So he actually killed and he beheaded them right there, saying that how dare you wear the ornaments of the deity. And that too, when the king who has given these ornaments, you have the audacity to wear it. And that went into a point where the temple was supposedly closed for 13 long years for cleansing, because it's Brahma Hatya. And they had to do a lot of rituals. And the main person who was adjudicating this whole cleansing process, for 13 years, the temple was closed. And he got in his dream that Venkateshwara said, look, the temple is closed, but what to do with the deities? So after 13 years, he came in his dream and he said, I am now not inside. I am actually come out, and you can actually see me, and my powers have been transferred from the Garbhagraha to the outside. And that thing is called as Vimana Venkateshwara Swami. Okay, if Aditya can give me the thing to share my screen, I will show you. And Vimana Venkateshwara means when you come out of the temple, sanctum.
You have to give, because you are the host now.
Okay, who's the host? Santhip is the host?
Santhip is the host.
Okay, Santhip, you have to make me the host. Again, did you see this? It is like I asked him, then the third person it could be the host. It could make me the host. Anyway, now this temple, as you come out of the main sanctum and you come to the north side, okay, you see this. I will share the screen. This is from Go Tirupati as a website. Okay, can everybody see my screen now?
Yep.
Okay, this, if you can see, is on the sanctum itself. It's made of gold, and what they have said is this vigraha in between. Can you see here?
Yeah.
This is called as Vimana Venkateshwara. Vimana, again, it's a Urdhva Mukha Nakshatra, and Shravana Nakshatra is associated with the north side. The side associated is north, and it's Vimana, which means it is Buddha. It is actually placed somewhere, and you can see the arrow here. And when you come down, you can actually see this combination of deities. Now you see here the silver, what is put there is showing that he has now the power of the entire temple, which means the Vigraha has now the power of the inside Vigraha has been transferred because of the cleansing process. He said, now I've come and I'm sitting here. All devotees who come around pray to this. Now, what is surprising here is you see what is the significance. You can see Garuda here. We said Akila.
Yes.
Okay, this star Shravana is associated with Garuda. And so you can see Garuda here on one side. Then we said on the other side, you see Hanuman. What did you say? Monkey is associated with Shravana Nakshatra, and he is called as BD Hanuman or BD Anjaneya. That's the name of BD Anjaneya. That's what he's called, right? And in between, you can see here Kubera, who is actually dancing. Kubera is the lord of wealth and treasures, and he rules the northern direction. North is associated with Kubera. So if you really see this whole thing, it is nothing but it's encapsulating the whole energy of Shravana Nakshatra. And if you have to go to Tirupati, again, I said you have to go with the step. You have to climb the stairs and you have to go on a mountain. And temples on mountains are very, very important as well. Temples in forests are important. Temples in mountains are important. They give you an elevated status to the deity. So whatever your elevated desires are, he can actually. But if you really look at these four deities, which I said, the first is Garuda, that is Akila, which is Shravana Nakshatra. Second is Kubera. I said north direction is associated with Shravana, and Kubera is the lord of the northern direction.
In the lineage. He's in the lineage of Mahabali and
Yeah.
Ravana.
Yeah. Same.
Yeah.
Lineage of Pulasya.
Yes.
So he's the son of Pulasya. I mean, not the son, he's the grandson of Pulasya. Vishravas is his father. And he is one of the Yakshas. So from Pulasya came the Rakshasas and the Yakshas. He's the king of the Yakshas, Kubera. Now, what I wanted to really show you here is the beauty when you see these, four. It shows Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. Who is Dharma here? Garuda represents Dharma. He's the fire element. Then you see Artha. Kubera represents the Artha element of resources. Kama, who gives you all the desires that you want to fulfill? It is this Vigraha, that is, Srinivasa, Venkateshwara. He is sitting there. And who gives you moksha? It's Hanumanji who gives you moksha. That's why he's called as Prana Devata. Okay, he's called as Mukhya Prana or Prana Devata. Who? Because his father is Vayu and he gives you prana. So Hanuman is also called as Prana Devata, so that's why he gives you moksha. So it's beautifully, you can see this entire thing of Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha also represented in the form. And I said gold. This is all completely in gold. So why gold? Because
Let's
I said,
get some gold.
Yeah. So because, whenever now Jupiter is going to go into Capricorn, I feel gold prices, people will start buying more of gold. Unlike what
already the gold prices have increased worldwide.
Yeah, they are increased because already Jupiter has gone into Capricorn and come out. So when people want to stock their house with gold, I know, Aditya is buying a lot of gold, physical gold. Why do you want to keep gold? Because, Jupiter is going into its debilitation. You want to bring Jupiter and keep. So you will see gold prices are going to go up. Because people want to bring Jupiter home and gold is Jupiter. So when you pray to this Vigraha, I feel that you are completing, your complete essence of the Shravana Nakshatra can be seen here. And it's fascinating to see this. I don't know, many people would not know about Vimana Venkateshwara. This is Vimana Venkateshwara. And when you come out, you have to look up Urdhomukha Nakshatra. So you have to look up to see him. And Vimana, it is a Chara Nakshatra. It's a movable Nakshatra. So he has decided to be on an aeroplane, Vimana. Okay. So anyway, these were some of the points that I wanted to make because this is an observation which I said I should share because it is all about Shravana Nakshatra energies. So that's all I had, but anybody else who wanted to share, we can then,
Yeah, one last point. Like I said, if you can't chant any mantras, you can even listen to the mantras also. That's also a very powerful remedy in Shravana. That's also one more thing. Listening to those YouTube videos with mantras. In fact, having that as a background kind of thing going on is the best thing you can do. Any mantra that's plays in Shravana. I've seen, in fact, with Shravana Nakshatra natives, I've seen that they have this unique gift in which they can absorb the power of a mantra just by listening to it also. There's also one more thing I can say. Yeah, so that's all what I want.
Shravana Nakshatra also becomes the Abhisheka Nakshatra, for Dhanishta Nakshatra. So Shravishta, Dhanishta. So it's all about the Astavasus, the material thing that you want to. So Abhisheka Nakshatra is, Shravana. Abhisheka means coronation or Abhisheka means hydration. What do you do?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Okay, so any other points, or do you think it's been a very long, lengthy?
2.5 hours Bollywood movie again.
Yeah, it should have been 3 hours, you know, in honor of Shravana. But
Shravana.
thankfully, it's less than that. Yeah.
So
Right.
any final points, or do you think we can wrap up today's session? Aditya, Eevji, Santhip, any other points? Because I am, whatever I had to share, I think.
I have so much material to work with now that it'd be perfect. I think it's perfect. Everyone shared beautifully. It's a lot.
So I want to say, we'll be doing more such videos, but thank you, all of you for taking your time. I know it's been a very long time before we could present this, but I'm so grateful to all the teachers here, and fantastic things have come out and I've learned a lot. So thank you very much, all of you. Namaste.